Okay, I see him. Okay, okay, okay.
Hello.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. Okay, everyone. So let's get started, and hopefully whoever's already signed up will come in the midst of this. So welcome, welcome, welcome everyone to our Social Justice Committee meeting on tonight. Robert, would you like to give some instructions, please?
Sure. Welcome. If this is your first time joining us virtually, you will notice that you're currently muted and everyone will remain muted throughout the meeting, except the committee co-chairs Sarah and Sandra and any presenters as we move through the agenda. As we move through the agenda, the co-chairs will call on members of the public who wish to speak. You can participate by going to the reactions icon on your device and pressing the raise hand button, not the wave or the thumbs up, as those will disappear. Only press it once. If you press it a second time, your hand will go back down. If you're calling in on the phone, there's *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. Please be on the lookout for a prompt asking you to confirm unmuting once one of the co-chairs calls on you. The chat is available for technical support only to help with Zoom software problems, not to ask questions of the co-chairs or the presenters. They will not see these chats. If you're using an older version of Zoom, you need to go to the participants section where you find the raise hand feature there. Please do not raise your actual hand or wave at the screen because we may not be able to see you. Chat me, I'm here for support. Sarah Sandrea, back to you.
Thank you so much, Robert. So welcome everyone once again, and keep in mind we're streaming on YouTube, so some people will be watching and catching it on later. So tonight we are fortunate to have a presentation from NYCHA on the Family Reunification Project, and Sarah, the co-chair extraordinaire, as I like to say, is here, but she's gonna, I don't know, she's not too, a little under the weather today, but she's gonna give input when needed, of course. And we have Valerie here, so which is great. And yeah, so we're gonna get started. So Abraham, you can introduce yourself because when I lead, I like to just have people introduce themselves. And introduce yourself, tell us about you and the work you do, and after that, then you can begin your presentation. Thank you.
Sure. So my name is Abraham Tejeda. I'm the Family Reentry Administrator here at the New York City Housing Authority's Family Reentry Program. Um, I just kind of manage and go over the day-to-day of the program. I have a small team that works with me, that works on the individual cases. And I'm sure people will kind of understand more about my work as we jump into it. As you guys know, I have a presentation here. So let me see if I can share is it possible for me to get access to share my PowerPoint?
Yep.
Um,
Give
and
me
I
one
can,
second, Abraham.
yeah, no problem. And hopefully that can answer a lot of the questions, or maybe not all of them, but a lot of the questions that folks might have. But the short of it is that our program is created to reunite people who are coming home from incarceration with their loved ones in public housing, including people who may have been restricted from living in public housing in the past. And so we'll be able to talk about that a little bit more as we move forward.
Okay.
And you should be able to share your screen now, Abraham. Let me see. Let me see. All right. All right. Give me one second. No, we cannot see it. Can you see this? All right. Now we can see it. All right. Are we good? Can everyone see my screen? That
Yes.
first slide? All right. So yes, this presentation is not that long because I know nobody likes long PowerPoints, but I hopefully can address a lot of the basic questions you have. And at the end, I can answer any other questions that the committee has. So we'll jump right in, right? So again, right, the NYCHA Family Reentry Program, fostering stability and strength, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a while too. So what are we going to cover today? We're going to talk about what the Family Reentry Program is.
the program and referrals and numbers, success stories, and how to refer folks to the program. So, family reentry is an opportunity to reunite people and simultaneously promote public safety by strengthening community ties and reintegrating justice impacted people into the community. Our program is special because it allows folks 2 year temporary permission to move back into the household, into a household of a family member in public housing. During that 2 year period, the household rent does not go up because of the temporary permission status that the individual has. So this is a huge benefit, both for the person coming home and for the household, right? So you can take in this family member, any income that the family member makes during that 2 year period, the formerly incarcerated person who's rejoining the household will not contribute towards the household family composition and will not increase their rent. Now we can talk about what happens at the end of the 2 years, but that's a little bit later. But the important part to know is that during that 2 year period, that's not something that the household or the individual would be stressed about because the income that that person is making, hopefully it can contribute a little bit to the household because I'm sure there are other costs, but it will not immediately increase the pressure on the household in terms of the rent. At the end of the 2 year period, participants can be requested to be added to the lease. If they are added to the lease, that does mean that the rent goes up, but they have 2 years before they get to that point. Every participant in our program is connected to social services, job training, adult education, and pretty much any opportunity that they express they want to be connected to. So we do talk with all of our participants. There's a process that they have to go through to be accepted, and we do check in with them after they are accepted. And so if they express interest in particular areas and they're not receiving those services elsewhere, we can step in and provide referrals or try to guide them in the right direction. So how do we define family, right? So there are a set of relationships that people that are covered under family reentry, right? Many of them are listed here, right? Husband, wife, son, daughter, stepson, stepdaughter, father, mother, stepfather, grandparents, in-laws, right? If you look carefully at this list, what you will notice is there are a few family relationships that are not there, right? So for one is cousin relationships, also aunt or uncle relationships are not covered here, but many of the other family relationships people have are covered under our program. So in essence, the person who's coming home must have one of these types of relationships with the person that they would like to move in with. If it is not one of these types of relationships, they would not be eligible for our program. We also cover domestic partners, right? Sometimes people don't know about domestic partnerships. They think that it's the equivalent of common law in other states, right? There is no common law in New York State. Domestic partnership means that you went to, your borough hall, your city hall, and there's a document you can get that sort of certifies that you are in a relationship with this other person. If you do have a domestic partnership, that is evidence of your relationship, and that would make you eligible to move in with that person. Some of the other eligibility criteria. And the individual who's applying for our program, the person coming home, has to be at least 16 years old. They have to have left the correctional facility within the last 3 years. Again, they have to have one of those qualifying relationships to a family member that is currently living in public housing. Some of the folks who are not eligible are people who have been convicted of producing methamphetamines on public housing property. People who are must register on the sex offender registry for life. People who have been evicted from federally assisted housing, whether this public housing or Section 8, and people who are currently engaged in illegal alcohol abuse or illegal substance abuse. I mentioned before that there are some situations where people may be restricted from living in public housing or even from visiting. Permanent exclusions and trespass bans are what I was referring to. So, people who have permanent exclusions are people who uh, either lived in public housing or used public housing as their address when they were arrested for some type of crime. When that happens, the housing authority can be alerted to this arrest, And the housing authority can institute a permanent exclusion, which means that that person is not allowed in a particular household or development. Trespass bans are similar. They can ban people from households or from developments, from buildings. And if a person has a trespass ban, they can be arrested just for being on the property that they're banned from, right? Without them committing any other crime. With permanent exclusions, one of the consequences is if the person is found to be living in a particular household after a permanent exclusion has been issued, the household, the tenant of record, the person who's on the lease, their tenancy can be terminated. So they can lose their apartment. They could be essentially kicked out of NYCHA for having a person with a permanent exclusion in the household. Through our program, we can temporarily suspend these for the 2 year duration of the program. At the end of the 2 years, we can support the individual in permanently removing them. Usually, if they can go through the whole 2 years without any issues, they've already met some of the criteria to get the permanent exclusion or trespass ban removed, and it's pretty simple. So we just have to share the documents with them. Uh, there are some other restrictions, right? This program is now open to Section 8 families or to families living in the 13 NYCHA tax credit developments. As I understand, there are some exceptions to this rule, but those are exceptions and not the rule. And so if folks are living in one of these developments, it may be possible that they are not, most likely they are not eligible, but I would encourage them to apply anyway. Another thing to consider is if a person is trying to move in with a family member who lives in senior housing, they must still meet the age requirement for senior housing, which is 62 years old. So, in trying to move in with a family member who lives in senior housing, that may be a challenge if the individual coming home is younger and doesn't meet that age requirement. Another consideration that we take is that an applicant cannot join a household if the apartment is extremely overcrowded. Extreme overcrowding is a technical term, right? There is a specific definition within the guidelines. It has to do with how many people are residing within a particular apartment. It has to do with the size of the apartment, the number of rooms there. Again, right, I don't expect anybody to be an expert in that, but it's just something to consider if a person is trying to move into an apartment where there already seems to be a lot of people living. It may not be the best choice, but I would still encourage that person to apply because that's something that we would verify on our side. We want our participants to be willing to participate in intensive case management services for at least 6 months. So every person who comes to our program, as I mentioned earlier, is connected with social services. There are a list of providers that we work with that I will get to a little bit later. Those providers must provide intensive case management services for those 6 months, and we expect our participants to comply with that process. The idea is that the first 6 months is identified as one of the most vulnerable times for people who are coming home in terms of reentry. It's a fragile time, right? People are getting reacclimated to society. Sometimes it's been a longer incarceration, sometimes it has not, but there is an adjustment period. There's a period of people getting on their feet. And so we want to make sure that people have the support that they need to get off to a good start, right? After those 6 months, right, as the more time progresses that a person has without um police contact, the less likely they become to reoffend statistically. So we try to support that as well, right? We want to make sure that we're giving a lot of support to people when they first come home, because that's the time when they're most vulnerable to get into a situation, to have like really serious challenges. And so we hope that our participants are understanding of that, right? And are willing to seek help and to receive help. They must also be willing to live with family members who currently live in NYCHA and who are willing to participate, right? So again, right, not only must you have the qualifying family member, but they have to want to take you in, right? Sometimes folks think that their family may be receptive, and as we start to move through the process, we find out that the family is not receptive. That is something that the applicant or participant should have a conversation with their family about, and also understand that they are going to be coming into a household that has been in place, that probably has its own structure and order there, right? And they need to understand they're going to be joining that household, right? Understanding what that means, right? In terms of following the guidance of other folks in that household, right? Being able to live with them without disrupting anybody's life, right? Either the person coming home or the household that's there. And lastly, we are hoping that our participants are willing to make a positive change in their life. We've been very, very successful with this program, and the next slide talks about that. But it doesn't work if the people don't work. And I think our folks we've had have been really eager to move forward with their lives, to put their past behind them, and that's all we're really looking for, right? We don't want to put people back in the community if they're not ready for that, or if they've had issues in the community and are gonna return to those same issues that they had before. So these are some of our numbers. We've had 337 total referrals, 194 accepted, 33 denied, right? 109 withdrawn. And we have one that's pending under review right now. One statistic that is not covered here: of our 194 people who've been accepted, only 8 have had to be terminated due to rearrest. So folks are not automatically terminated due to rearrest in our program. But we have had some cases where people have had to be terminated, and maybe I can talk about that a little bit later. But 8 out of almost 200 is an incredible number. So I think it shows to the success of this program. It shows that family reentry works, that people do better when they are home with their families, when they're able to be reintegrated into their communities with support. So I want people to take that with them as we move forward. So, in terms of those category definitions, accepted is pretty straightforward. People who are accepted, they signed the documents, they moved into the household. Denied applications, right? People who are not accepted. Now, it could be because their background check shows one of those convictions, right, or charges that makes them ineligible. It could be because the apartment was overcrowded. It could be because the relationship that they were claiming they had with the person was not indeed that. It wasn't a truly qualifying relationship. Those are all different reasons for which an applicant could be denied. Another reason an applicant could be denied is the consideration of victims of a crime, right? So if a person committed a crime in a particular place that affected another resident and they're trying to move back into that place, could be something that would be considered in their application. I wouldn't say it's an automatic denial, but it is something that we would have to look at very closely. We also have withdrawn applications. So those are situations where either the head of household, right, the person who the participant is trying to move in with, or the participant themselves withdrew the application, right? They said, I don't want to go through this process anymore. It's too burdensome, it's taking too long, you're asking for too much information. Or most likely it is, I found another housing option that is better, right? And so those are situations where an application could be withdrawn. Applications that are pending on or under review are going through the initial screening process. So there is some screening. We do background checks on everyone that applies for our program. We do discuss what comes up in our background checks with the participant, with the applicant. So we could be waiting for the background check to come back. We could be waiting for information about permanent exclusions or trespass bans, because we also check for those for every applicant. We may just be waiting for more documents from the individual or from the provider that's working with that individual. We also could be waiting to schedule the interview with the individual or the home visit with the head of household, which are other also aspects of the screening process. And lastly, we have deferred applications. So we have a screening committee, and our committee can request that the applicant demonstrate some type of progress or more information about their progress and return for another interview at a later date. So one success story is Jose Gonzalez, who is one of our first applicants, and I may be able to share some more information about him later. But this is a direct testimonial, right? He said that family reentry gave me a second chance in life and allowed me to reunite with and care for my lovely mother and regain employment as a building maintenance coordinator. I was able to make my mom proud before she transitioned. So this is not completely uncommon scenario, right? We do have people that move back in with their parents, with other family members, with elders who may not be well, who have disabilities or other health challenges. And many of our participants are able to step in and sort of serve something of a caretaking role as they continue to move forward with their lives. So this is a list of our partners, right? So these are who we depend on to provide direct case management to our participants. The Center for Community Alternatives, the Center for Justice Innovation, ComAlert, that's out of the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office, Exodus Transitional Community, FedCap, the Fortune Society, Housing Works, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, Manhattan Task Force on Reentry, Manhattan Reentry Task Force, excuse me, the Osborne Association, the Urban Youth Alliance, also known as Bronx Connect, the Women's Prison Association, and the Youth Justice Network. Another thing to note is that applicants can apply to this program before they are released from prison or jail, but they must have a release date, right? As soon as they have a release date, they may apply for this program. We can start to gather the documents, and we actually love those cases because it's wonderful to have somebody come home and be able to come right into their place, right? Not have to go to a shelter, a halfway house, some other type of transitional housing to go straight into their family member's home and be received there. To refer someone to this program, you can contact our hotline number. I encourage everybody to call that number, 212-306-6024. You may also email our general email address, the family.reentry@NYCHA.nyc.gov. Anyone can email or call those numbers. Someone from our staff is always assigned to check them. So those are the best places to start. And from there, we can begin to collect whatever information that we need to move that person's application forward. And thank you. Any questions you have, I can stop sharing and I can try to answer any questions the committee might have.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I see we have another Abraham here, community board member. We have two Abrahams in the house.
Nice.
I guess you can open up for Abraham to ask a question, and I'll ask something after him. I believe that you answered, but I just want clarity.
Great. Thank you, Sandrea. And yes, it's not often that I'm in a Zoom or a meeting with multiple Abrahams. So nice.
Right. It's rare, right? Yeah.
I like it.
I had two questions based on the presentation. Thank you very much for that presentation. Very thoughtful and insightful. One is just for my edification. Why is it that Section 8 and the tax credit establishments are excluded from the program?
So I'm still trying to figure out all the nuances to that answer, but I can give you a simple, like, layman's version, the way I understand it. So this program is meant to apply to public housing that is funded by something called Section 9. So basically there are different ways to fund affordable housing and public housing, right? And Section 8 and Section 9 are two different sort of pools, as I understand it. And then as programs are rolled out, by decree of the federal government, they may have like clauses written in that say they must apply to like certain types of housing. So as I understand, family reentry was originally created to apply to Section 9 housing. And so housing developments that are not funded by Section 9, that's why we have that issue. But I do know something that we have navigated in the past. It is a little bit tricky. It gets kind of complicated, but the general is yeah, that's Section 9 and Section 8, and the tax credits are just funded differently.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Thank you. And I assume it has something to do with Section 8 is private developers with affordable housing, as opposed to 9 is actually local housing authority developments. Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Right.
The other one I had was regards to the you said applicants could be denied if they have some kind of substance issue, whether it was with illegal drugs or alcohol. And I know that it's not uncommon for individuals being released from prison or jail to have issues with some kind of dependency. So would that be an automatic disqualification? So if an applicant was kind of seeking treatment for one of those conditions, would they be admitted into the program? How would that work?
If they're currently seeking treatment, that's a reason that supports their application coming into the program, right? So one of the reasons that we work with those providers, many of those providers also offer substance abuse like support. So like we definitely get that. That is also a guideline that I believe comes from HUD. I believe that applies to all Section 9 housing, that particular rule. At the same time, we definitely understand that people may be in recovery, right? I wouldn't want to disqualify anyone who is in recovery, but we do have to keep an eye out. Like if the person is like currently, using, that may be an issue, right? Like I, the worst case scenario I would say is like if a person shows up to the interview and they're like visibly intoxicated, that would be an issue for us. But if a person had a history of addiction, but they're in recovery, they're seeking services, that's a reason to support their entry into this program, right? I would say, if anything, I would say housing might be one of the stabilizing like pressures that might help them
Right.
sort of stay in recovery.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Hmm. Thank you. Great questions.
Abraham to Abraham. Great.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to piggyback because I was wondering about that too, that what Abraham asked about the developments that were excluded, and you mentioned the Section 9, Section 8. So is that because of the red pack conversions or those developments? Because I didn't really looked at the list that great. So do you know it, or I could check myself after the meeting. But is
So
the possibility that those are developments that
as
went
I understand that those would be considered Section 8 developments.
right?
Now, at the same time, again, like also what I understand is that there is some type of exception to this rule. I'm not sure how or like what the steps are. Like I'm still sort of figuring that part out. But as I understand it, there are situations where people have been admitted, but generally speaking, no, they would not be eligible in like a pack ride or any other Section 8 development. Um, I think like if people feel like they have a compelling application, send it and let's look at it. Maybe I can navigate that process and figure out what the actual rule of thumb is. But as I understand it, this is meant for Section 9. The way it was written in was for Section 9. I also do think though at the time that this program came out, that it wasn't as much of an issue, right? There were not that many. I don't think there were Section 8 developments at the time that this program came out, or at least not as many. So I
Right.
don't know if that changes things.
Yeah, the conversions, even some are in place in 2024, about to happen in December. So that needs to be known. That needs to be really advertised so people know that's another benefit when we go from Section 9 to Section 8 with red impact, because family reunification, it becomes a problem for some families. Yeah, so that's good
Well,
to
if you know any place I can come talk to, I I go everywhere, right? I'm not only on Zoom. I come straight to the development. So please, anybody who's watching this, any of the other committee members, if you know other developments, other places where I should be talking about this, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll be happy to come and talk some more about this.
Yeah, that information is very needed because there's there's a lot of things with these conversions that are problematic, and this is just adding to the tool chest of that. Yeah. Okay, that's good. I just want to find out also, you might have answered it when you mentioned prison or jail. So this was a question I had, but you probably kind of answered it. Is this program equally available for both participants that served city and state time?
Yes.
Right. Okay, that's what I
Hmm.
figured.
They just have to have been released within the past 3 years. I think originally like the program was and I would say many of our participants are people who have had longer term incarcerations, right? Like they're coming from upstate, but it's not limited to them. They could be people who had like a shorter the incarceration on Rikers, right? Those people are also eligible.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Sometimes they're sentenced and they stay in the city jail.
Hmm.
Finish
Hmm.
it. And my last thing, then we're gonna go back to the list of people with their hands. Can you walk us through a home visit? What does it look like?
We would visit the household, right? We would call the person first. Obviously, we schedule a time and a date that works for them. We visit them. And then we basically just asked a few questions about how they feel about having this person move in with them, like how they feel about, you know, how that person's there, how many people live in the apartment, like all those basic questions. So it's pretty straightforward. It's kind of like to both to like verify the overcrowding issue and also to like get a gauge for how comfortable and like prepared the person is to take in the family member. Um,
So when you all go into the home, whoever that is that does the home visit, are they asking, show me where they're going to sleep at, something like that, that type of question?
they could ask that, but like, so I mentioned extreme overcrowding, right? An apartment could be overcrowded and and a person could be approved through our program.
Okay.
It just cannot create extreme overcrowding, or the person cannot be added to a place that's already extremely overcrowded. But yeah, that might be a question that's asked. Like if the place doesn't look like there's a lot, like, yeah, we might ask, okay, well, where's this person? And does that person know that that's where they're gonna sleep as well? You
Mhm.
know,
And
because
would a liver,
maybe when they left, maybe the person lived in that apartment before, but last time they were there, they had one of the bedrooms. But now that they're coming home, somebody else lives there. So does this person know, right? So things like that.
so if a family member sets up that person coming home, there are no bedrooms available, but they are offering them the living room, is that acceptable through you all? Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Good to know. All right. Moving along, Erica, and then Boaz after.
Thank you. It's good to know that this exists. What are the different avenues that people can find out about this program?
Well, I go to parole sites. I've talked to most of the parole officers in Manhattan and Brooklyn. I'm still working on Queens, Staten Island, and the Bronx. I go to some of the parole orientations. There are not that many anymore, but I do also Manhattan and Queens are the two that do have parole orientations. We have a relationship with Brooklyn Parole where we also table there. Outside of that, during the whole summer, I went to a bunch of different family days all over the city to talk about the program and advertise it at the development level. We also have worked with the Office of Neighborhood Safety, which has identified several developments throughout the city where they're trying to encourage participatory budgeting, and also community-driven solutions to reduce crime. So we've also attended many of their events. And yeah, I go anywhere. I go anywhere that I'm invited where they'll talk to me. So if you go a place, if you it's whether it's Zoom in person, I pretty much go everywhere. But it is a big city and we have a small team and I do get around a lot, but I definitely need help reaching all the corners of the city. And maybe participating in events that will have a wider range of impact. So if you know that like places where there are key people, there are people in every community who are sort of the knowledge holders who know about stuff like this and they can kind of spread the word for you. So I'm always trying to find those people, right? When I'm at the family day, I'm looking for that person. Who's the elder in the community usually, right? Or sometimes it's a young person, but who's that person that knows about all the services and all the things that people can take advantage of and tells everybody and puts them up in the buildings. And I try to connect with that person. So if you know people like that, if you know places I should be that I'm not, please let me know. We also do Queensboro Correctional Facility. Like we go there. Like, we pretty much go anywhere where there's a reentry population. And then we also try to focus on doing things within the NYCHA developments because we know that residents need to know. So sometimes I'm meeting with resident associations and leaders and talking to them. But again, it's a very big city. It's hundreds of developments, hundreds of thousands of residents, right? So I need all the help I can get.
Thank you.
Sounds great. So, I'm gonna get you in some places and spaces, Abraham. We already talked
You
offline.
keep saying
It's
I'm waiting for
happening.
you.
It's happening. It's
Waiting for
happening.
you. I'm ready. I got my sneakers laced up. I'm ready.
Okay. Okay. You're gonna get busy. All right. Go
Yeah.
ahead. And then Valerie.
Can you hear me?
Yes. How you doing?
Okay, perfect. I'm doing I'm doing okay. I joined late. I haven't had a chance to see your entire PowerPoint presentation. So maybe you already answered the question that I have, but first of all, it was important for me to. I saw the session through YouTube. It's being live streamed through YouTube, but it was first of all important for me to join and first of all to express my full support to your work and to this initiative. And again, thank you for the co-chairs on bringing the attention for such program. Second chance, super important, specifically in a city like place like New York City that you sneeze and on the wrong direction, and you can get into jail. So many regulation and so on. So full support. My only question, I want to make sure that there is no pressure on the family. And this is the scenario. So I don't know, a wife, an husband come back from the prison, call his wife, tell her, listen, I want to come back to home. And the wife doesn't feel comfortable, but then he puts some pressure on her on the side. It's a very you understand, it's a very tense. I just want to make sure that the people that questioning have the set skill, maybe I don't know, to determine that the family actually welcome this person to their apartment, and it's not some kind of a pressure that
Sure. No, that's an excellent question.
does this comment. It's like a comment more than a because
Nah, yeah,
yeah.
that's 100, like it's 100% valid. So it's a couple responses to that. So we do have, so part of our application process. So the way our applications work, um, we can many times we initiate first contact with the participant, but as I mentioned before, the participant will be connected with one of those service providers on that list that I mentioned. So part of the service provider's role is um partially they also have to conduct an assessment of the individual, right? So they make their assessment of the individual and they submit the application to us. Part of the application also includes a document that has to be sent to the tenant of record, right? The head of household, the person who's going to be in the apartment, and they have to fill out that document and return it to the provider. So the provider submits that to us, right? We give the blank, like the blank information to the provider. We connect the provider with the individual by giving all like the relevant information. The provider can reach out. Um, the providers also, if they encounter the individuals on their own, can go through this process, and they often do that as well. Um, so the provider submits that to us, right? We do a home visit now with the resident, right? I mentioned that before. Part of the home visit is for that as well, right? To understand, is this like really, are
And I
you,
want to ask, the home
yeah,
visit is without the participant or
yes.
without? Okay,
Yeah, the home
so
visit, the participant is not there. The participant has
perfect,
not moved in yet during the home visit.
perfect,
This is
perfect,
before it's even
perfect.
gone before the committee to make a final decision. At this point, it may have gone to the committee just for screening purposes, but like the initial screening purposes, but it's not going to a final decision. The results
And
of that home visit are looked at in combination with the application to make a determination. So if the person who's doing the home visit, is sensing, right? Because they may sense through the body language, through other things, that this is an issue, right? That could be something that comes up. Um, also,
just a follow-up question on that.
mhm.
And is there uh, is there another meeting happening with the homeowner in a natural place, not in their residence, where I don't know, the kids are there? I don't know, some for a
It usually
coffee with a social worker.
it usually happens in the home, right? I think
Okay,
part of it is because we want to also check the overcrowding issue. Like we want to get a sense
I
of that.
hear you.
So that's also part of it. But it
I
is
hear
usually
you.
in the home. But it is
I,
at the time and
I
everything of their choosing, right? Like they can pick, they can sort of, but that is part of that. So I think the two types of safeties that we try to have for that is having a separate application that the participant doesn't see. So like the family member could put on the application, there's a section that speaks about that, how comfortable they feel with having the family member there. If they put all negative marks, then we know we probably should not move forward with this application, right? Or if they're marked low, we won't do that. If we go into the interview and we sense that something is off about this, right? That we feel like maybe this decision is being made under duress, that is also something we can consider. Um,
100%, 100%. Again, I don't want to be in the negative. I mean,
mhm.
I'm just asking, but again, I want to emphasize fully support the program. My only comment, I don't know if you have any, if you can send feedback to whoever is the decision maker, or maybe your decision maker, I don't know. But I think it will be smart to have another step in the process to meet specifically if we're talking about women, family women, take them, in a natural place, one-on-one interview with a social worker or some, just to make sure that they don't have some kind of a social pressure, in their house, maybe the kids are listening, I don't know, maybe I watched too many movies. I don't know, but I just want to make sure that there is no pressure on the family, because sometimes family will say, "Listen, this guy doesn't. We don't. Is going to bring a bad negative to the rest of the family. I don't know." Um, uh, that's one. And again, maybe it's a little bit out of context, but I'm just curious. So this program is already working? Is it already, or it's something that will happen? If it's already, can you give us some
It's
numbers? How
already
many? How many?
194 people placed.
Very cool.
Only 8 have been rearrested or have been terminated due to rearrest, I should say. And that's out of 337 applications. Everyone does not get accepted. Only 33 people have been denied. The rest have been withdrawn.
Perfect.
Out of
Perfect.
those
That's it.
194, 55 have been added to the lease and been able to permanently join their households.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you very much.
Sure.
That's it for mine. Thank you.
So I will yeah, I'll take that into consideration. We could think about that. I think what we have in place does meet some of that, but I can definitely elevate that and see if that is an option. I think one of the things we may be concerned about on our side is we definitely want to make checks and we want to make sure that people are not being pressured in different ways for sure. But we also don't want to make like a million hoop. Like there's already a ton of hoops people have to jump through. So it's like we also try not to make it like
100%.
what is necessary.
Extra bureaucracy. Yeah. No, I fully
Yeah.
understand.
Right.
Okay.
We already got, but I will take that up. I will talk. Our department is housed under a department called the Family Partnerships Department, which is actually the social services wing of NYCHA, and they do have social workers. If the household has had a case with those social workers, most likely we will become aware of that. That is part of the screening process as well. Um, but yeah, I can take that back and see what response I get. Maybe there's a way we can merge the home visit and that together or something.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Valerie, thank you. Valerie.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. I mean, I'm familiar with a couple of reentry services, but does every prison in the state have a reentry services program, or do people just get let out without going through the hoops? Because otherwise, they really wouldn't know about the NYCHA program to begin with, would they?
There are counselors and they have counselors that are supposed to engage in discharge planning.
Mhm.
From what I hear, um, that can differ, like depending on what facility you're in, depending on how many people are being released at a particular time,
Right.
depending on the capacity of the staff there. What we have done with the state corrections, right? There is a resource binder. Our fire and our information is part of that resource binder. We also developed a bookmark that's specifically for correctional facilities.
Mhm.
In conversations with the New York Public Library, where they have a prison library program. They mentioned that bookmarks might be good, so we created a bookmark. We've shared it through the library. We've also sent it to several prisons. Um, so it is in the binder. So in theory, like the people who are detained there should have access to it. But again, they would have to somebody might have to direct them to that binder, or they would have to look through it and find that
Yeah.
page. And it also kind of probably some of that probably depends on like what you said, them connecting probably depends a little bit on, staff being aware. So we're trying to increase the awareness of the staff, and we've had some conversations with people on the state corrections level. But a lot of our focus has been on parole, right? We know that those people are gonna like the people who are on parole who are not maxing out are gonna pass through local parole, and so a lot of our work has been getting to them and getting to the parole officers who are their first point of contact.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. The fact that only 8 are, rearrested or withdrawn through rearrest shows the benefit of being, back in your own home situation to help your recovery and reentry. But I wanted to ask about what seems like a really high number of withdrawn applications. And do you have any data on what's leading to those withdrawals? Are they like do they figure out their family doesn't want them, so they pull the application first, or what kind of factors go into that?
I haven't done a really rigorous study of that. That's something maybe we should look at, and we could, I don't know if we track that, like the information, the why people withdraw. Maybe that's something we need to track moving forward. I know offhand, just like off the top of my head, like cases that I can remember that have been withdrawn recently, it's usually they have another housing option that they think is
Yeah.
better, right? So
Okay.
like one individual, um, I think he was applying to move back in with his sister. He also had like a partner. I don't know if it was his girlfriend or domestic. I don't know what the exact nature of that, the specifics of it was, but I think he preferred to move in with her than to move in with his sister.
Okay.
So it didn't really make sense for him to like initially it sounded like it was good, but then I don't know what happened. Maybe the partner was willing to take him in and he was like, well, if I could go with her, then I don't have to bother my sister. So
Okay.
so that's what he decided. But I think we should maybe take a closer look at that and see. But I'd imagine it could be that again, also there could be there is so we're generally pretty quick. We can get people approved within a couple weeks if everything lines up. But if everything doesn't line up, things can kind of drag out. Like in terms of things that's lining up, I'm talking about like the home visit. Sometimes, scheduling an interview with an incarcerated person can be a challenge, right?
Right.
Even sometimes when folks come home, it may be a challenge depending on what's going on and what they're dealing with and what their living situation is, their work situation. So those things can delay the process. And
Right.
sometimes that can also be discouraging, I think, to people. And they may just decide not to participate. And I know in some cases it does come from the tenant of record, like the head of household, is no longer interested in participating for whatever reason.
Well, you're doing a great job, and it's a great presentation. It's quick and it gives you a lot of information. Thank you for coming tonight.
Sure, thank you for having me. I know nobody likes long PowerPoints, so we try to keep it quick, right? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Valerie. And thanks again for your presentation. And it's Sarah. Anything from you?
I had a question. Um, Abraham, you mentioned that people can apply from wherever they're being detained. About how long is that period? So what kind of lead up period do people need so as soon as they're out, they can join their family?
I would say like if you can give us like a month or two, if the person's currently incarcerated, that would probably be more between 1 and 2 months should be enough time. Um, barring any extenuating like circumstances, that should be enough time.
Right. And So I also wanted, I don't know if there are more questions. If there are more questions, we should definitely get to
I think
questions.
Wendy had her hand up.
Oh,
I think I saw. I don't. Oh no, she was clapping. She was clapping. My bad. Sorry, I'm not good with the Zoom emojis. My bad. Thanks, Wendy. Go ahead, Sarah. Sorry about that.
um, how do folks feel about okay, actually I should do this officially. I would like to make a motion and if seconded, speak to it. So motion to support resources to expand the family reunification program. Urge elected officials to disseminate program information through their offices. And I believe that the program is currently a pilot, so making it a permanent program.
It is a permanent program, but
It is a
I
permanent
definitely
program.
would
Okay.
appreciate the support nonetheless.
Okay, so then
Definitely,
support expansion of resources to expand the reach of the program and the number of people who can be served. And then urging elected officials to disseminate program information through their offices. Do I have a second?
Valerie.
Thank you. And then I think it would be a very simple resolution. The whereases would describe the program. I can use the bullets from Abraham's presentation, and then the two resolved would be supporting resources to expand the program and urging elected officials to help disseminate the program, because I think most especially city council offices have social workers who work on housing issues, and so if they have this information at their fingertips, they can support families and provide these options for them.
Sounds good. Yeah, I mean, anything to help push it along through this committee and beyond, and hopefully the full board will, we pass it here, hopefully the full board will help push it through as well. And then we can make an impact, and maybe you can go from community board to community board and do presentations as well.
listen, if you know other community boards, if you could plug me in, give me a soft intro, I'll be happy to do every community board in the city if I can. Yeah.
Yeah. Some of them do not have a social justice committee up and running, but they do like the model and what we've been doing so far. So that'll be maybe their first meeting, some of them hosting this
Well,
program.
thank you. Thank you for having me. You have a question still, Valerie? I see your hand up. Okay. Yeah.
No, but okay, no.
Mhm.
All right, so
We should vote on the resolution.
does it, Robert? Robert's unmiked.
I see Abraham has his hand up and Erica has her hand up. Sandra, I'm not sure if you want me to call on one of them.
Abraham, yes.
I was just going to call the question on the vote, on the resolution, I mean.
Right. Second it. Second it.
Oh,
Then,
second.
Sandra, I'll turn it to you to.
Oh, it's called the vote.
Yep.
Call the roll. Okay. So,
I,
okay, you're gonna take the roll, Robert, right?
yep, I have Sarah Chu, Sandra Coleman, Valerie Mason, Abraham Sacedo, Wendy, and Erica are two public members at the end. I'm not sure if I've missed anyone. I don't think I did.
So, all in favor? Any opposed? And I think it's unanimous.
Yeah. Awesome. Pass is here. Woo, woo, woo. Awesome. Yeah, look at Abraham. That's right. That's right. Come on, Abraham. That's right.
We're gonna snap it up
You
for you.
got to be busy. Trust me.
I like being busy, so I'm looking forward to it. But thank you all for the questions and for the feedback. I really do appreciate it. And if you have other questions or other feedback or other stuff comes up, you can feel free to reach out. At the email address, most likely is probably the best way if you have a particular question. I think the hotline is better for people who like want to come into the program, right? But if you email me, I will, address it to me and it will get to me and I can follow up with you.
Thank you so much. Did you find out about the PowerPoint? If you can share it with us.
I'm sorry, I did not. Let me follow up again. I
Okay.
don't think that, yeah, let me follow up. Let me ask just to be sure.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's out on YouTube anyway, so it's out there. So
Yeah,
it's just part
yeah,
of the minutes, part of the minutes. Hopefully they'll say yes.
yeah.
Hopefully.
On the YouTube was one thing I think, but I don't know if they'll let me share the physical. I have to ask. Yeah.
Okay.
But thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you all, and thank you for the support for the resolution. I really do appreciate that.
Okay. And we'll definitely send you the follow-up, the minutes and so forth, and the resolution here, and then hopefully we'll pass through the full board. You'll get a copy of that as well, and see
Yeah,
all elected officials that are CC'd in there.
nice. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. Anything else, Sarah, from our great presenter? And thanks again. We really appreciate it. Short and sweet. Answer some questions. While I was writing questions, you were answering along. So that's a good thing. So thank you so much. And yeah, so we're good, right? We're good going forward. Okay.
I'm good. So I can hop off. Is that the
Yeah.
best thing? All right.
If you want, yeah, we're about to wind up, but if you wind down, but if you want, yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks again, Abraham.
Thank
You
you all
can
for having
stay,
me.
Abraham. One Abraham has to stay. Must stay.
Lucky you got two today.
Yeah. Okay. Any old business? Any new business? Okay. A motion to adjourn. Valerie, second. Second it. Sarah, second it.
I saw Abraham.
Oh, okay, okay. Valerie's gonna get me. I don't have them readers on, Valerie. She's gonna get me. Sorry. Okay, so Abraham seconded, right? Okay. All right. Perfect. Thank you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And help us push it through the full board. Appreciate everyone. Until
Thanks,
next time.
everyone.